Let's talk about the Trump campaign, because I want to play something Trump said yesterday in a speech ostensibly about Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to the border. Let's take a listen.
Kamala is mentally impaired. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. If you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
Okay, so first of all, there are actual people out there with mental impairments, right, and that's insulting to them. Second of all, Vice President Kamala Harris is not mentally impaired.
No, I just think she's crazy liberal. I don't question her.
But what do you think about that rhetoric?
I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. 400,000 people have been let loose in our country. 16,000 people convicted of being a rapist. 13,000 convicted murderers, and 400,000 of people generally convicted of crimes released on her watch. It's not going to get better.
So I saw that statistic. We dove into it, our fact checker. That statistic is actually over decades. So some of those people you're talking about are people that came into the country during Trump. And second of all, some of them are in prison. A lot of them are in prison, not ICE prisons, but federal prisons for their crimes.
I can tell you this, the man who killed Laken Riley in Georgia was released by the Biden-Harris administration on parole because they had no capacity at the border to hold him. That's not a reason to parole people. I promise you, women have been raped and murdered. People have been hurt by illegal immigrants released into this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It's crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress thinking it won't embolden Iran. Well, it's crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan hoping things will be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying your policies are batshit crazy.
Okay, well, they're not my policies, and there's a whole lot of things you said. I'll just say she didn't boycott.
She didn't show up.
She didn't show up. But let's focus on Trump's rhetoric, because that's what I'm actually asking you about, because
the problems with the world are not Trump's rhetoric. They call him crazy. Pelosi wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment. Why don't you ever talk about that?
So Donald Trump also said this at an event on Friday.
If I lose, I'll tell you what's possible, because they cheat. That's the only way we're going to lose, because they cheat. They cheat like hell.
Okay, so in point of fact, it is anybody's. Tell me if you disagree with any of the statements I'm about to make. Okay. In point of fact, Harris could win or Trump could win.
True.
It's anybody's race.
True.
It's razor thin, and whoever wins, in all likelihood, it will not be because they cheated. It will. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of any cheating.
Well, mail-in balloting was a problem with COVID. I hope we fix that. I certified the last election because I listened to the allegations of cheating. I thought it fell short in terms of changing the outcome. I'm more focused on today and tomorrow, and here's what I would tell President Trump. When people look at the state of play, they trust you on the economy, the border, inflation, and foreign policy by wide margins. Focus on those issues.
On those, and don't call Kamala Harris mentally disabled. That's your advice. One last thing. He has not agreed to do another presidential debate. Mm-hmm. Do you think that he should? For example, Kamala Harris has accepted CNN's invitation if they want to do another presidential debate. He liked the debate we did last time. He thought we were fair. He thought the rules were fair. Obviously, that was a very consequential debate. Should he do another debate?
I'm going to leave it up to him, but I'd like to see it myself because I think she's a mile wide and an inch deep. Look what's going on in the world. The world is literally on fire. They don't have a clue. They're paralyzed by fear when it comes to Iran. The world that Trump left us when he left office was mortgage rates below 3%, a secure border, peace agreements, no war anywhere. I would like to see her explain how she's going to change things when she's been in charge for 4 years and hasn't changed anything. I'd like to know from her point of view what did happen in the Mideast. Why do you think the world's on fire? Why do you think Russia invaded Ukraine? Have you not figured this out yet? That you're weak in the eyes of all of our enemies? And here's what I would say to Trump. If you do debate her, she is a mile wide and an inch deep, and you can prove that.
Joining us now from Arizona, where he is campaigning for the Harris-Walz ticket, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. And Governor, obviously, Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham, has some strong views on this campaign, saying that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is a mile wide and an inch deep, and that she has a belief in policies that are, quote, I'm quoting here, batshit crazy. Wanted to give you an opportunity to defend the ticket.
Well, thanks, Jake. And, they have nothing on their side to talk about that's good for everyday Americans, for working families. That's why they're just name calling. That is what this is all about. You heard Donald Trump talk about mental impairment yesterday. I think whenever he says things like that, he's talking about himself, but trying to project it onto others. And all I can say is that, with a policy like a $6,000 child tax credit that'll help young families, $25,000 to help people who are first-time home buyers with a down payment, $50,000 tax break for people who are starting small businesses. Those are real policies that are good for Americans everywhere, and they're economic opportunity-oriented policies. Again, you hear nothing out of Donald Trump. Mostly it's about a big tax break for the wealthiest Americans when you hear the Republicans talk. I don't think that's what everyday folks are looking for when they go to the polls over the next 40 days.
So Vice President Harris is in Arizona yesterday to try to shore up an issue where she is vulnerable, at least according to polls, immigration and border security. In her speech, she doubled down on the issue of border security, said she would expand President Biden's crackdown on asylum seekers, which started earlier this year. That is quite a reversal from her position in 2019 when she was running for president, when she supported decriminalizing illegal border crossings entirely. Why do you think voters who care about this issue should believe her now when she says she's going to address this border crisis as a moderate or as a even center-right kind of position, especially when this crisis spiraled out of control on the Biden administration's watch?
Well, remember, there's been massive migration all throughout the world, people literally moving from one country to another, and that began to increase significantly over the last 4 years. So it's natural, of course, that you adapt your policies to meet the moment. And what Kamala Harris has put forward is that she would stand up for the bipartisan border security bill that Donald Trump torpedoed. Let's get some perspective here. 40 years we've tried to get some comprehensive immigration reform. It needs to be bipartisan because we haven't had a Senate that's had more than 60 members, which is the filibuster limit of either party. And the result is that we've had no bipartisan effort on immigration. We finally, under Joe Biden, got Senator Lankford and a total of 75 senators behind a border security bill. And you know who torpedoed that? Donald Trump. So we got to pay attention to the fact that Kamala Harris is actually trying to solve problems. Donald Trump has been all about Donald Trump and his election efforts.
So that effort, the Lankford bill, et cetera, that was in the last year. I mean, this has been a crisis that started in the first year of the Biden administration. And I know just from having covered it that the White House was rather dismissive of it and thought that this was just repeating right-wing talking points, et cetera. Vice President Kamala Harris was in charge of going to the Central American countries, addressing the root causes, but she's only been to the border before yesterday. She'd only been there once. It does seem as though the administration just in the last year has realized, oh, we need to really do something about this. But what about before? What about 2021, 2022, 2023?
Well, as you know, I'm from Chicago. I'm from Illinois. We saw an influx of migrants there, and you heard me talk about that over the last 2 years. One of the big challenges, so I've been, intimately in discussions with the White House about what to do. Look, it's a challenging issue to resolve without legislation. And that's been the problem for 40 years, Republicans, Democrats not working together. So in order to do it without legislation, you've got to go negotiate with all the countries that are south of us from which those migrants are coming to make sure that there are policies in those countries that will keep them from moving north and steadily toward the border and then piling up against our border. That is a problem because the president does not have the power to shut down the border. That could have been something in the border security bill that became law, but president doesn't have that. So you can only do it with a combination of policies and working with those countries. That is not an easy thing to do. You can't just overnight announce that you're going to do it. You've got to actually get those countries to agree. So it took a couple of years, frankly, for the administration working behind the scenes to get that done, while they were also trying to get bipartisan legislation, and they came this close. And again, it was Donald Trump that torpedoed it.